Good evening, everyone. I welcome you back to Awesome Stage College Education Virtual Revision Class. I remain your humble instructor, Ali Mondin. And today I'll be revising educational psychology with every one of you. And I'm going to start from introduction of the word educational psychology, most especially because of those students or learners that just joined us recently or that joined us on Sacred Education Ejigbo campus lately, for them to be able to answer some certain questions, for them to be able to unlock some certain information, for them to be able to defend themselves anytime they come across some certain relevant question. And if we look at it so far from beginning, we talk about education. And I say education in its broad sense is an indispensable instrument that molds the lives of individuals. That is, we are talking about education here. If you can remember what I said the other time, that here we have education and we have psychology. We have some terms that was derived from the word education and likewise from the word psychology. And that is why here I said education in its broad sense is an indispensable instrument that molds the life of individuals. And apart from that, both informal and formal educations are crucial to the existence of individual. If education is removed from a person, then he or she is left with nothing. And what we are saying here is this to let you know that immediate education has been removed from a person. Immediate what education has removed from a particular person. That means he or she is left with nothing. That means education is very, very important in our lives. And mind you, the other time I said something that is, if we are talking about education, at times, at least, we are not talking about those people that can read and write only. And that is where here I said that if education, that is ability of that particular person to be able to acquire some certain information, for that person to be able to retain information, for that person to be able to now retrieve that information, that means the person has already left with nothing. And apart from that, the knowledge of psychology as it relates to education, it will help the teachers to understand the ever-changing behavior of the child, who is a product of the environment. That means as a teacher in training, as someone that want to become a professional or qualified teacher, I said the knowledge of this educational psychology, since what is related to education, it will help you as a teacher to be able to understand the ever-changing behavior of the child, who is the product of the environment. Apart from that, the study of human beings, no doubt, has been going on from time immemorials, and a great deal has been learned. A matter of fact, our forefathers who did not have the formal education still studied their children and other people's behaviors. And apart from that, they monitor their growth and development and were able to pass various comments on their physical resemblance and intellectual capacity. And is what we are saying is this, that is, as a teacher, the knowledge of education psychology will enable you to be able to identify all those learners. You'll be able to identify their behaviors. You'll be able to monitor them. Then you'll be able to identify their area of weaknesses. And that's what I'm telling you, that is what, as a teacher in training, it is must for you to make sure you acquire some certain information. It is also must for you to make sure you make use of all this relevant knowledge you have acquired in educational psychology for you to be able to make use of that in the class, for you to be able to influence the learners positively, for you to be able to monitor them, for you to be able to coordinate them, for you to be able to know the area of weaknesses and how to work on that. Then apart from that, I said to succeed in educating a child, the teachers need to acquainted with a great deal of information. That means you need to acquire some certain information about the child environment. That is, you have to work along with the parents because all of them must, as a matter of fact, share the responsibility of bringing up the child. And that is why I said that if you have noticed a particular what deviant behavior in a particular child, that is, I'm expecting what to inform the school management to carry them along, to carry the school owner along, and if possible, they will invite the parent. For example, a child that has been suffering or having issue with sight, the best for you to report as a teacher that I've been observing, as a teacher that have acquired some certain skills. And therefore, in this revision, we're going to look at the meaning of education. We're going to look at the meaning of psychology. Then, not only that, briefly, we are going to look at branches of psychology that we have, like education psychology, clinical psychology, school psychology, forensic psychology, military psychology. That is all various branches of psychology that we have. Mind you, we are talking about educational psychology, but we have others branches of educational psychology. And what is developmental psychology, if I may ask? Based on your previous knowledge, if they ask you that, you should define the word developmental psychology. How are you going to define developmental psychology? What are you going to say about developmental psychology? What do you want to tell your people or other students or other teachers in training about educational psychology? And if you can remember, developmental psychology is a branch of psychology which deals with studying developmental changes of human and animal behavior. I repeat, developmental psychology can be defined as a branch of psychology. I repeat, developmental psychology can be defined as a branch of psychology which deals with the studying developmental changes of human and animal behavior. That means in this course, in this developmental psychology, that is, we are studying psychology for us to be able to study changes, the area of changes, that is, developmental changes in humans, the developmental changes in animals, the developmental changes what in animal behavior, then we are going to relate it to human. And that is why we can remember the other time I said education psychology can be defined or psychology can be defined as the scientific study of animal behavior in relation to human. That means what in psychologies, you can see most of these great psychologists that they make use of animals while performing the experiments based on learning. And I can remember I gave you different examples of those great psychologists that have make use of animals in performing experiments, that have make use of animals in performing experiments in learning, and they now relate it to human. And that is why we now said developmental psychology is a branch of psychology which deals with the studying developmental changes of human and animals. Then apart from that, we can remember the other time we also check your under properly. We talked about scope of psychologies. We talked about branches of psychology. That is the area that psychology covered. And let us type look at it. I said psychology as originally concerned It serves with the study of normal adult human being. But what but that was in the time past. That is, in the time past, the Latin word psychology, as originally concerned, is said with the study of normal adult. Then not only normal adult, human being. But and I said that was in the past. Today, it has experienced its coverage to include practically all fields. That is, all fields of human endeavor, such as medicine, industry, law, politics, religion, education, and so that is what, if you are talking about psychology, psychology cover all areas. That means that's why I use the word coverage to include practically all field. That is, there is no fields, there is no area, there is no aspect where you don't need psychology. That means what, you need the knowledge of psychology. That means what, a medicine as a medical doctors, a qualified doctors that want to perform better, that want to excel, must what, make sure he or she acquires some certain skill on psychology. Industry, and that's why we have industry psychology and forensic psychology. That means what, in industry you need psychology. Why? Because you need to study human behavior. In law, you need psychology. In politics, you need psychology. Religion, you need psychology. And also what? In education, we need psychology. Then apart from that, if you also check your handouts, I mentioned several branches of psychology, and we can see here the first one I mentioned. If you can have your materials with you, you can check. I said we have clinical psychology. That is, if you are to mention different branches of psychology: one, clinical psychology; two, community psychology; three, counseling psychology; four, developmental psychology; five, environmental psychology; six, experimental psychology; seven, forensic psychology; eight, industrial and organizational psychology; nine, school psychology; 10, social psychology; 11, educational psychology. And we can see among all these branches of psychology, all these types of psychology, the only one that we are going to look at in details will be educational psychology, because that is the one that concerns us most. And what is education psychology? They ask is that question number one: define the word educational psychology. Or 1A, define the word education psychology. How are you going to define the word educational psychology? And look at it, I say educational psychology is one of the numerous branches of psychology. That is, it is an applied psychology with emphasis on educational problems in general and classroom teaching, learning process in particular. And apart from that, is one of the applied psychology who studies the way in which the learners can be most effectively brought into successful interaction with the materials to be learned, the learning situations, and the teachers who provide the learning opportunity. I repeat, that is, education psychology is one of the numerous branches of psychology. It is an applied psychology with emphasis on educational problems. That is, how child can learn, the problems that these children encounter while learning. Why is it that some learners can learn fastest? Why is that some people cannot learn faster? Why is that some people can retain information faster? And why is that some people cannot retain? You can remember, I said I have what I refer to what as 3 R's. That is retention, retain, then recall. That means what? Some child can retain information. Some child can recall information. Some child can retrieve information, while some learners cannot recall information. That is, why is it that many learners are passing through these problems? And that's why I said learning processes in particular. And not only that, it is one of applied psychology, which study the way in which the learners can be most effectively brought into successful interaction with the materials to be learned, the learning situation, and the teachers who provide learning opportunity. Then that's all about it. And if you are not okay with that and you are looking for what another short ways of expressing yourself, and say educational psychology is the application of psychological theories. I repeat, educational psychology can be defined as the application of psychological theories, principle, law, techniques to the development of educational programs and strategies on the one hand and the solution of educational problems in how of others, or I mean on the others. I repeat, educational psychology is the application of psychological theories, principles, law, and techniques to the development of educational programs and strategies on the one hand and the solution of educational problems on the other. And apart from this definition of this psychology, we have several definitions of psychology, education psychology. You have right to choose anyone. You have right to give any accept them. That is why ability of any learners to be able to give any acceptable definition will attract 5 marks. Then, apart from that, if you also want to look at it when properly here, we have reasons why many people, why is it that those teachers in training, they need the knowledge of education psychology? Why do they need the knowledge of educational psychology? They need the knowledge of education psychology for several reasons, and we are going to look at them one after the other. And we look at it, I said, the following are other reasons why teachers or prospective teachers should study developmental psychology. You as a school owners, you as a teacher in trainings, is there anything what that make you different from any other teacher? And that's why I believe that we have cheaters and we have teachers. That is what those are the people. Teachers can be referred to as those people that can make use of relevant knowledge, information they have acquired in education psychology, in solving learners' problems. And that is why I said we have teachers and we have cheaters. And we look at them one after that. The first one of the reasons why you teacher in training you need the knowledge. One, to understand developmental characteristics. To understand developmental character. And we look at it now. Children pass through different stages of development: infancy, childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. These developmental stages have their own distinct characteristics. If the prospective teachers know the characteristics emerging at different stages of development, he or she can utilize these characteristics in imparting instructions and molding children behavior according to specific goals of education. That means if you can be able to acquire some certain information, you can be able to study more about developmental psychology or education psychology. That means you'll be able to understand developmental characteristics and the stages of those children. The next one, knowledge of developmental psychology will enable the teacher to know how children grow and develop, when and what to expect from them, how to guide them in each stage, and provide the environment for their optimum development. The next thing we have is this. And is as a teacher in training, why do you study developmental psychology? Why do you need to acquire some certain skill in education psychology? Third point is this: knowledge of developmental psychology will enable the teacher to know what change should occur from one stage of development to another. This enables the teacher to know what is expected of a child at a particular age. Your understanding of what developmental changes are common to all children and will differ from learner to learner, will influence the kinds of expectations you have for your learners and your behavior toward them. That's what the information I'm passing across to you. That is what we can be able to acquire some certain skills here. That is, will help of this information you have acquired in educational psychology. You should be able to understand the knowledge of developmental psychology. That is, it will enable you as a teacher to know various changes that should occur from one stage of development to another. Number four, to understand individual differences. That is what the knowledge of this education psychology will enable you as a teacher to be able to understand individual differences. No two individuals are alike in the world. A typical classroom consists of learners with different abilities, interests, attitude. The teacher with the knowledge of developmental psychology will adjust his or her teaching to the needs and the requirement of the class. The teacher should be able to identify the learners with learning difficulties and be able to assist all these learners to overcome his or her learning difficulties. Developmental psychology equips the teachers in planning what to teach, how to teach, then method to use. Then, apart from that, how to assess the best method of assessment for this learner. Then, not only that, now to be able to meet the needs of different categories of learners. That's why I say, as a teacher, you must be very vigilant. That means what you must be able to know how to observe, how to identify individual differences in the class. Because if you're a teacher and you don't know how to differentiate between individual differences, there might be some certain issue. That is when it's time for you to evaluate, and mind you, that is how to evaluate teachers. That means if learners fail, it means you as a teacher also you're a failure, you have failed already. And what we are saying is that is, as a teacher, you should go extra miles for you to be able to make sure you'll be able to understand individual differences. That is, all those learners. Why? Because they cannot assimilate the same way. They cannot assimilate the same way. They cannot acquire information or record information the same way. And that's why they are all different from one level to other. And not only that, now the home or the background also vary. That means what you have to consider individual differences before they can be able to acquire some information. Number five, to help the teacher to guide child learnings and adjustment processes. That means what this knowledge of education psychology will be help teacher to guide child learnings and adjustment processes. Then, what is importance of education psychology for teachers? We have talked about the general one, that is you as a teacher. What is the importance of education psychology to you as a teacher? And if you look at it here, we have many points. But one, that is individual differences. I've mentioned that before. That is what, as a teacher, you need the knowledge. That means what the education psychology is important for you as a teacher. Why? Because it will equip you some certain skills. That is the skills on individual differences. That is how you can identify individual differences. How you can identify different learners with different difficulties. And that's why I say teacher has to deal carefully with a group student in the classroom situation, as there are wide variation in different ability among the students. Therefore, it is very essential to understand the individual differences of students regarding their ability, interest, attitude, and need at different levels and growth and development. Then apart from that, that is to know the classroom teaching learning process. That is your classrooms. That's what I told you the other time. That is what you have to know the teaching learning process. If you don't know the teaching learning process, that means what there might be some certain difficulties, there might be some certain issue also in the classroom. A well-developed theory of classroom teachings and learning is helpful for transacting the content to the student effectively And not only that now, we include classroom climate and the teaching competence, which will require for effective communication and presentation of content. A teacher must know the appropriate principles of teaching learning, different approaches to teaching for better result of teaching and learning process. Then apart from that, awareness of effective methods of teaching. That means educational psychology is important for you as a teacher. Why? Because it will enable you to be able to be aware. It will enable you to be able to aware. It will enable you to be able to know the best effective method of teaching or techniques you're supposed to make use of for effective learning. And that's why I said the method of teaching is based on the developmental characteristics of the student or learners. For example, history is taught effectively to small children with the help of storytelling method because small children like stories. So the classroom teaching depends on the teacher's knowledge about the interests of students and the methods of teaching for the students of different age groups. And what I'm saying is that is as a teacher, you must know the best method that you can make use of in order to make your class very interesting, in order to make the learners to be able to learn, in order to be able to make learners to listen, in order for learners to be able to acquire information and for them to be able to recall the what all what they must have learned, the information they must have obtained during the normal classroom and activities. Then curriculum development is another thing that is education psychology the help what teacher in what in curriculum development. That's why the course of study of particular degree or diplomas is spared by teachers. Knowledge of psychology is helpful in developing curricula of different levels of students in different subjects. The developmental characteristics and needs of the student are also taken into account for the formulation of curriculum. And if you look at all this one after the other, and the first phase of the handle, that is, like what I said the other time, that one thing that's very important is what meaning of psychology, meaning of education, then relevance of education psychology to teacher. That's phase one of under. That means what here now you can come across all at least the meaning of psychology. Then the branches of psychology. They must also what ask you the importance of educational psychology for teachers or general importance of educational psychology. And that's where we're going to stop for the phase one. Please watch out for the phase two of this revision.